Yes, we are back aboard. We could not wait for a Saturday night recap. It's the end of February. It's a midweek recap live on college basketball coast to coast and our platforms. As we've already seen some action that has gone final, we got a lot of games in progress, and we're all about it on the nation's college basketball show, podcast, and streaming show on TuneIn. I am merely the somewhat competent host, TJ Rives. Hello to my wingman, Jason Powers. We're based in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area. Uh, full disclosure here, Jason's kind of been scrambling, seen some of the games tonight. I've been watching some of the action as well. A lot to go over, and we look forward to it. Jason, how are you here on a Wednesday? It's too good from here on out to only do this like one time a week on
Yeah,
Saturday night. We're going to have to get in some here and there.
no doubt, no doubt. We got some great conference matchups, and down the stretch we come in the Big East. Who's going to win? Be the one seed in the Big East. We hope to get what we thought we might get. We hope to get a trilogy of UConn and Connecticut. UConn St. John's. We saw St. John's get destroyed tonight in Hartford, and
Yep.
give them all the credit. UConn taking care of business. I guess what was most alarming to me was holding St. John's to 40 points. I mean, is that a St. John's problem? Is that a UConn plus? Probably a little above, but
it wasn't just holding them to 40 points. What did you say on the field goals attempted and
11
made?
for 56.
They missed 45 of the 56 shots they took. So that's, I mean, some of that is defense, some of that is bad basketball, and this plagued his team in the NCAA tournament game. Remember last year with Arkansas, different year, different team.
Outside shooting.
I do know this. The game was 11-9. So in the first 4 or 5 minutes. Then the game was 33-12. They outscored them 22-3 and never looked back tonight for the UConn win. So
well, and then St. John's got it to 13 at the half. So you're thinking, okay, 41.
13's a whole lot, right? 13's a whole lot better than being down 20.
Right.
Half
So
on the road,
41-28, and then they go to score 12 points in the second half. 12.
Yeah, not good enough.
12 seconds was about as long as Rick Pitino's press conference, apparently, right?
You are correct. That is a good line. Pitino came out in a hoodie sweatshirt, a St. John's hoodie sweatshirt, and literally did not last as long as the McDonald's drive-through window in answering questions, and said, it's all on me, and we will be better. We've got Villanova on deck. They asked him about, did your team get eaten up by the atmosphere? He said, no, it wasn't that. We just weren't good, and blame me. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Tip your waitresses. And he took off. So UConn again has rolled. By the way, thank you for finding us, whether you've done so on social media through Twitter X on the CBB Coast to Coast handle, on the YouTube page, or on, again, podcast after the fact. We're also on Facebook streaming live. Podcast after the fact, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, as the night goes on. Again, we typically do it on Saturday night. We're coming midweek here. It's about to be the month of March. The show will be on all kinds of different times on the college basketball coast-to-coast platforms, including the TuneIn streaming channel. Want to tell you in a few moments, DeShaun Tate will be here, Mr. Tate's Take from Atlanta. Love his insight with us on college basketball coast-to-coast. He'll do a little SEC breakdown, a little ACC breakdown with us, even some Big Ten, where Nebraska has won tonight. We'll tell you about the Cornhuskers. They were victorious over Maryland in a game that could have maybe gone either way. A game that Maryland, Jason, was a 17-point underdog at game time. They were winning with 8 minutes to go in the game. Could have gone either way, but Nebraska pulled away for a double-digit win. We obviously have to talk about this as well when DeShaun is on and elsewhere. You don't want to say wrap it up in the SEC. But short of like Alabama, maybe Tennessee, maybe a Vanderbilt on the neutral floor, who's stopping the guys on the screen? The Florida Gators, the defending champs. They put it on Texas tonight, Jason. A thought or two?
They just keep getting a little better each week. That's Todd Golden gets all the credit for stabilizing after that 5-4 start, and they have just rolled through this SEC. Had a couple of losses, I get it, but boy, the last 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks or so, it has been devastation incorporated. I mean, they didn't destroy that game with Texas was relatively close most of the game, but just Florida just continues to pull away, and they took care of business in Austin. Texas is not a great team. They're a decent team. But give again, Florida just continuing to peak. You almost hope I mean, you don't want them to peak too soon, but boy, they just seem to keep getting a little bit better every week.
Keep in mind that this was about the time a year ago. Last year is last year, but this was about the time a year ago that they turned it on. They beat Alabama at Alabama. They beat Auburn at Auburn. And
Yep.
I know Walter Clayton was leading the team, but you've got across that front line Thomas Houck, Alex Condon, who was great tonight. He had a 20-10 night tonight, the
Yep.
Australian, and Ruben Chinyalu defensively and on the boards are coming on strong the same type of way. I know last year is last year, but these guys have put it together to this point late in the regular season. Huge game with Arkansas coming on the weekend. We'll talk a little more about that a little bit later on. Arkansas in action right now while we do this live tonight with Texas A&M at home. But you really start looking at who can knock these guys off. Is it Alabama?
They go to Kentucky the last game of the regular season. So
They
Lexington,
do.
that's a spot you could be careful there. You could get beat in Lexington, but Arkansas. I believe that game's in Gainesville Saturday. Correct? That's a home game.
Correct. Yes.
So you would favor Florida in that game, but Arkansas is good enough to beat them. But yeah, I mean, so they've still got a couple more tests, but they should, by all indications, they ought to be the number one seed going into the SEC conference tournament.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this point here. Have they been disrespected a little bit by the selection committee chaired by Keith Gill, the head of the Sun Belt Conference? Florida was not on the 2 line, and in fact, they were a couple of spots down on the 3 line when that committee revealed things. Of course, the committee revealed their top 16, and 6 of them lost on Saturday.
Yeah.
So throw all of that out that you saw on Saturday a couple of weeks
No.
before the brackets are going to come out. But do you believe we didn't go to the University of Florida, you and I? We live in the Sunshine State, but are they being disrespected a little bit right now?
I don't think so. I think they're right where where they ought to be from where they started at. Again, a lot of other teams are in those top 8 teams have a lot of non-conference wins that maybe Florida doesn't have. I know Florida's beaten a couple teams. Florida's right there, the top of the 3 line. If they run the table and win the SEC, they'll be on the 2 line. I don't think there's any doubt. So if Florida keeps winning games, they could probably lose one more. If they lose one and win the SEC conference tournament, I think they'll be on the 2 line.
Again, there are some other games that have gone final. We mentioned in the top 25 that Nebraska did defeat Maryland tonight. Maryland awful under Buzz Williams, but they beat them by double figures. Maryland, by the way, dropping to 4-13 in Big Ten play. 74-61 was that final. Vandy is number 25 in the country. Remember, Florida won at Vandy earlier in the year, but Vanderbilt has 2 or 3 significant wins. They beat Georgia tonight 88-80.
Yep.
Vandy also a win at Missouri recently. I'm just looking in their recent for Mark Byington's team, what they've been able to do. They had the loss to Tennessee on the weekend at home. They actually lost, they lost to Missouri at Missouri. But before that, had beaten Texas A&M, had been on a bit of a roll, including beating Kentucky, including a couple of other wins earlier in the year. They beat Alabama earlier in the year as well, early on in the season. So Vandy solid, and they can score. Tyler Tanner can score some points. They got Darius Miles, or Duke Miles back, off of injury. He played well tonight. So there's just another team that we will stick in there in the SEC.
Going to be curious how some of these teams, whether it's the middle of the pack of the SEC, of the Big 12, how do they fare in neutral site games when they're not playing the guys they've been preparing for all year in conference? So I think the Vanderbilts of the world, I know BYU lost last night in a bad game at home, but those kind of teams, the Iowa States of the world, how are they going to pose when they're in a neutral site? Teams that can score. Again, Vandy can score. So I think that's going to be beneficial to them. So, and in contrast, how does a team like St. John's handle it when they can't score? I mean, are they good enough defensively to grind these kind of games out? We're not sure. So middle of the pack teams in these big leagues, when you get into these neutral site games in the first round of the tournament, it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle things.
Can we liven it up a little bit? Can we clean it up a little bit and get some respect going? Let's say hello to Mr. Tate's Take. DeShaun Tate is now here with us on college basketball coast to coast from the ATL. I always love the wisdom. I always love the insight. My friend, join in wherever you would like to join in. We've been talking SEC for the last few minutes. I'm kind of posing it as, has Florida truly separated themselves? It's tough to argue that anybody else is really on their level in that conference. Welcome to Sean. Let's start right there with Florida, a win at Texas tonight decisively. The game was a 2-point game. They had a 14-1 run that broke it open in the final 6, 7 minutes and won the game. DeShaun, welcome. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree. I agree with you guys, and thanks for having me, TJ. I mean, realistically, from where we saw Florida at the last time that we had saw them before the season started, which was standing on the ladders with scissors in their hands, and then they opened up the season the way that they did against Arizona, a top three team in the country, and turn around and doesn't look remotely close to the Florida team that we had saw finish the season last year, slowly creeping back to being the team that we thought that they would. And I think the same case could have been said prior to tonight's game for St. John's. I think they ran off about 13 or 14 games in a row before running into UConn. And so I think that I'm only buying into that so much. I still think that they're at the top of the league with UConn. I think that, Florida's certainly at the top of the league, but I think that Alabama's right there. Florida's not invincible. I think that, at least I have a good feeling, we all kind of somewhat know that to a degree. I mean, they were struggling with a Texas team tonight that just really isn't all that good. Let's just and it's not about coaching. They got a really good coach in Sean Miller over there. I know he's still trying to get some things up under their feet and things like that too. But I don't think it's clear cut. We talked about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt gives me the vibes in the SEC very much like Nebraska does for me in the Big Ten. It's almost like I want to believe them, but it's still really hard. I think most people have difficulty ignoring the name on the front of the jersey, but the way that they've been playing all season has been honestly fantastic. And then the SEC, I think Arkansas, another team that a lot of people had, really high expectations for. They're the first team in college basketball to play all Elite Eight teams. Some of those didn't necessarily go their way, but it was a learning experience for them. And then they've been playing a whole lot better now. So I think that we're really starting to separate the boys from the men, not just in the SEC, but also in college basketball as we get closer to March.
So
Is
Arkansas, real quick, Jason is leading Texas A&M. Darius Acuff, I didn't realize this. Acuff has been the SEC Player of the Week 9 times,
wow.
9, including
Detroit,
this week.
stand up. Detroit, stand up.
Yeah, so that kid has been amazing. Are they the biggest threat? I know they play Florida this weekend. Are they the biggest threat to derail Florida, including in the SEC tournament in Nashville, Deshaun?
I think so. Where's that game at this weekend, by the
It's
way?
in Gainesville, so they get that one. We'll double check that. It is in
Yeah,
Gainesville,
almost positive
99%.
in Gainesville. Yeah.
For that,
Yeah, I
yes.
think I think they do propose the biggest threat. But I tell you one thing that Florida has going for themselves, besides just playing in at home, is the fact that as good as Darius Acuff is and a few of the other guys outside of Trevor Brazile, not going to surprise or shock anybody that Coach Cal's still relying heavily upon guys that are inexperienced. Where Florida, that's not the case. Sure, they rely on Boogie Flang quite a bit. He's somewhat inexperienced, obviously, in his second year. But when you still have Condon and you still have is it How
Chinyalu,
How
Hauk,
How.
How as well,
Chinyalu,
Chinyalu.
Chinyalu.
These are guys that have big time, not just lots of experience, but big time game experience. Obviously, been
Production
on that
in
team
those
last
games.
year, productive and contributions. So when you start talking about guys like Chinlu, I mean, on the boards is going to be ridiculous. One of the better rebounding teams, or at least I think that we'll see that in the game coming up this weekend. But Arkansas should give them a good run for their money. They might get humbled a little bit, but I still think that Arkansas is right there in the top three of that of the conversation for SEC.
Jason, go ahead.
I know there's been a lot of chatter about Auburn. Again, another a good win over the weekend, controversial win. Mark Pope was criticizing the officials on the tip in at the buzzer. A lot of people still think Auburn's right there on the bubble at 15-13. I mean, I'd have a hard time
They took
seeing
a
how.
horrible, Jason, they took a horrible loss to Oklahoma last night. I know they got
Yes,
the Florida win. I know they got that Kentucky win, but Deshaun, they're on the outside looking in right now. Would you not agree on
I
Auburn?
I definitely agree, and I don't feel like that's a new thing. I feel like they've been on the outside looking in ever since they got the doors, brake pads blown off of them by Michigan early in the season. They haven't looked like the same team. And I mean, how could they? You lose your coach and you're losing, some of the best players in the country coming off of a Final Four and all that other stuff. Things are going to change. Will they be on the bubble? They just might. They'll get a little bit of the nod from playing in a tough conference that the SEC is with so many teams in it. But in that same breath, I don't, I do think you got to sit back and look at some of the losses they've had this season and the fact that
Auburn,
you can't compare last year to this year's
pardon
SEC.
me, let me interject. Auburn is 36 in the net, but that doesn't tell the whole story. They've had 16 quad one opportunities. That's a ton. They're 5 and 11 in those games. So they've won 2 or 3 significant ones, but when the committee starts looking at 9, 10, 11 or more losses in quad one, that's going to say to them against the best teams on your schedule over and over and over again, you didn't win the games. And that was a bad loss to Oklahoma last night. So let's go back to UConn. DeShaun, I want your take. I don't know how much of this you got to see, but they wiped out St. John's tonight in a 25 plus point victory. That is revenge for them. They now pull into a tie with St. John's atop the Big East, snap the Red Storm 13 game win streak. Did Danny Hurley's team kind of announce themselves tonight that, hey, the Big East still runs through us? What do you think?
I think so. I think for sure that that's the case. Not on anticipate or expect for it to be anybody there in the end, with the exception of them in the team that they played on tonight. I think ultimately that's what it's going to come down to. I think both teams are Final Four contenders, national championship contenders. I think it's a bit much when we start talking about St. John's, but UConn very much. I mean, look at what he's done. He won 2 national championships. The very next year, obviously didn't come remotely close to replicating or duplicating that, having a down year, but it's really hard to bounce back the very next year and kind of put yourself back in that position again. And I think that they've done that. They haven't always gotten the most consistent play out of Alex Caravan either, but they're still able to show that they can win some basketball games, especially with having solo ball. They've lost a lot of pieces from those type of teams. I think this is where you have to give the credit to what Hurley has been able to do there as well. And so they very much, still in the mix. I don't think you can name 5 teams right now. I want to say 3, but I don't think you can realistically name 5 teams right now that can cut down the nets. Because you guys know how this goes every single year. We're gonna get ready for the next week or so and start having conversations about who can win it all, how many teams is there. People are gonna lie and say there's 12 to 15 teams that can do this. I don't think that's the case, nor is it ever. It's usually around a good handful or maybe plus one, 5 or 6 teams. I think it's impossible to leave UConn out of that conversation. And by tonight's big time statement win, deservedly so.
72 to 40, just a little of the breakdown, and then we'll move on to other subjects. That Terrace Reed had 20 and 11 boards in the game. Caravan, I saw, had a couple of huge three-pointers. He finished with 14. They end up getting a couple of more contributions. Solo Ball had 11 and 4 assists, and veteran players, Ball and Caravan. And then you've got Mullins, the freshman. He didn't do much tonight with 9. They didn't need it. Again, St. John's only 14 points in the second half. That was a no-show for them. I put it on the screen. Jason, you first, and then DeShaun. How big is the case for Connecticut to be that 4th number 1 seed along with Duke and Michigan and Arizona? What do you think, Jason Powers?
I think they would have to win the Big East Conference tournament and probably get a little bit of help from somebody else in maybe the Big 12, Iowa State or I don't think Houston's a 1 right now. But yeah, I think they're probably 4, 5, 6 on the line. So they absolutely have an opportunity to get that 4th number 1 seed. They would probably have to go, probably not out west, because Arizona will probably go out west. I don't know which, probably the southeast, maybe.
Right.
Maybe the southeast.
They're going to put Duke
in
in the East. They're going to put Duke in the East.
Michigan in the Midwest.
Would they put UConn in the South?
Right.
Stay tuned on that.
Right.
DeShaun, same question here. UConn going into the game tonight was 10 in the net. This is their 9th quad 1 win, making them 9-2. Hello. They do have the loss to Arizona on the home floor early on in the year, but they have been dynamite for the most part since then. Have a loss to St. John's in the Garden, and that's about it on their schedule. Case for UConn as a 1 seed. What do you think, DeShaun?
Absolutely. I don't think anyone's gonna eat UConn's lunch for losing to an Arizona team that we eventually found out exactly how good that they are early on in the season, whether it's at their home court or not, and then losing to St. John's, which is, we expected to be a really good team, and definitely didn't live up to some of the expectations for most of the year, but have turned it around and looked like a really good team. You have to win games, especially revenge games against teams like that within your conference when there's familiarity and things like that. Getting back on your home court again, by the way, to try and make up for that loss earlier in the season. And they did that. They're checking all the boxes and they did it in impressive fashion as well. I think that they are whether they're the last number one team, number one seed or wherever they're going to be seated, I think it's that. It's Duke, it's Arizona, it's Michigan, and I think that it's UConn. I think that they're going to hold some weight, although they don't play in a conference as tough as Iowa State does. I think the name on the front of their jerseys will get a little bit of a nod. The non-conference games, I think, match up, for them in their favor more than it does for Iowa State too. I think that has a part to do with it.
Just going right there, UConn's non-conference strength of schedule is 14. Not bad at all. They have the win over BYU in Boston early on in the year. We mentioned the Arizona loss. They beat, by the way, Illinois at the
Mhm.
Garden early on in the year. Beat Kansas at Kansas. That win stacks up.
Yeah.
Beat Florida back at the Garden on a neutral floor. This is all out of the conference.
Yeah.
Then they beat Texas in a home game. So
Yeah.
Now,
strong out
TJ,
of
we're,
conference.
and I don't want to put you to work by any means, but if you don't mind pulling up Iowa State's non-conference games, and then I think that's
Yeah.
what will be the
Ask
tell of
and
it
ye
all.
shall receive, my friend.
Well, I can
We,
look at here,
we,
TJ. I'm glad you said that, TJ. I got a bunch of bills over here that need to be
I
paid.
understand.
I need a little bit of
I'm
help.
getting biblical. I'm getting biblical here. We'll bless your bills. Iowa State, if you need them, currently 8 in the net, 60. I'm sorry, non-conference strength of schedule. Remember, I said Florida 11. Iowa State 242 out
Yeah.
of the conference, and that's
There you
because they
go.
played a lot of bad teams. Now, Iowa State does have a St. John's neutral floor win in Las Vegas. They also beat Creighton and Syracuse, who are not very good.
Yeah.
Iowa State beat Purdue at Purdue. That's large.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And then they beat Iowa in the matchup with Iowa, who's in the top 30 at home.
They sweep
But
Kansas.
again, yes. Again, one team is 11 in the non-conference strength of schedule. The other is 242. And DeShaun, your point is that matters, right? On the committees,
I would
team
I,
sheet.
I would say so. I think that they have other things going for them that I know probably we can argue, if they should or shouldn't have anything to do with it. But I think brand plays a part in some of that, especially when you already have, the leg up, if you will, on non-conference matchups and wins. I get it, playing Kansas. Well, they beat Kansas at Kansas as well, the same way that they did. So you cancel themselves out on that one. Iowa State's win against Purdue at Purdue, which obviously West Lafayette is really tough to do, and I get it. Some people can make a case and say Purdue, while they have been pretty good, don't forget that's a Purdue team that was ranked number one in the country coming into the season, for crying out
Yep.
loud. So, and I give Iowa State credit for that, obviously, but I think with UConn and everything that they've accomplished and accomplished this year, by the way, I think it's just a little bit too much, and that probably sends Iowa State off to being the top number two seed in the
What
country if the
what I
season
would
was
I
to
would say
unfold.
this though, if Florida runs the table, they may be the top number 2 seed paired with Connecticut. And it right here in Tampa was where the Gators could be for the first 2 rounds because
Yep.
there's a regional, or the first 2 rounds are here in Tampa. So you'll probably see Florida, no matter what number 2 seed they are, or 3 seed, probably in Tampa.
Good point.
Yeah. Generally speaking, they try to keep, if you're in the top 4 seeds, they try to keep you in proximity.
Geographically, yeah.
Certainly, Florida, if they keep winning, is going to be in the top 4 seeds. We all agree on that, on the where. And you make a good point. Duke's going to be the East team, it would appear. So UConn would then probably get bounced to the South. They have always had great success as the West regional champion, winning
Yeah.
the national title, but that's going to probably be Arizona when it's all said and done here on this. We'll stay here for a little more. Games that are going on right now. First of all, Nebraska got the win tonight. How big a believer are you that the Huskers can hang in They beat Maryland, who's awful tonight. They had to pull away DeShaun, if you did not see it, to do it. They were losing actually with about 9 minutes left to Maryland, who came into the game 4-12 in the Big Ten, but they pulled away. They won by double figures. They've got Mast and Frager and Sandiford, outside shooters. The son of the coach, Hoiberg, the guard, has done well as a distributor of the ball. Are they a contender here in the Big Ten tournament, Nebraska? What say you?
Absolutely, there's no question. And if I'm Nebraska, I love the position that I'm in. Nobody's been taking me serious all season long, no matter how much
True.
I've been winning, no matter what I've been doing, no matter how many points. Because you got to remember, a lot of these games that Nebraska have been playing and winning these games, they haven't been by a possession or two. They've been by a handful, two handfuls of, points. Sometimes some 20-point wins sprinkled in there against some teams that you just, to me, it's kind of eye popping, but nobody's looking for Nebraska. I love that position if I'm Nebraska right now. Could they be playing themselves into position to being a potential 2 seed? I know that that sounds like a bit much, but it's really not, to be that honest with you. And so they've got good wins. Obviously, the non conference probably doesn't match up. They'll be probably one of the better threes, if not probably the best four based off of record when you look at it. Now, resume in terms of who they've beaten and where they've beaten them at non-conference and all that stuff, probably not nearly as much impressive as it is some other programs or teams. But when you start just looking at records, how many losses do they have? Three, maybe at the most,
They have
probably, I
four.
would
They're
imagine.
20. They're
Four.
24-4, and I'll give you their
Yep.
metrics real
Wow.
quick while we do this on the fly. They're 11 in the net. Non-conference a little weak, 271 in the non-con. Again,
Sure.
most notable wins beating Oklahoma on a neutral floor. That's not that notable. They're top 70. They beat New Mexico, who's top
Sure.
50 in Kansas City. And then I'm looking at what else was actually there.
Who are the
Not a
losses?
not a lot. The losses,
Four conference losses.
Michigan, Illinois, Purdue, and then at Iowa. No
Big,
shame in
yeah.
any of those
Yep.
Three of
with
the
the
top.
losses.
Three of the top four of those teams being in the top 10 in the country
Well,
right
right.
now and have been for a good portion of the
They
season. And
are about to head to Southern California and play USC and UCLA. They then rematch Iowa in the final game of the regular season, and Nebraska going to probably be a top 4 seed in the Big
Yes.
Ten tournament, right, Jason?
as
We think.
They're in second place right now. I mean, them and Illinois are tied. Your Spartans, DeShaun, are a half game behind with Purdue. So two through five could jumble up a little bit depending on what happens in last.
And
But they're going to be a top 4 or 5,
and
4 seed. Most likely.
by the way, Nebraska has beaten Illinois in a split. Yeah. They've beaten Michigan State. They've beaten
Right.
Indiana at Indiana.
Right.
As DeShaun was saying, this is not a pushover situation for them at all here at this point.
Big Ten question, DeShaun. A team that's starting to get some chatter, that's lurking, that's going to be a very dangerous 6, 7, 8 seed, Wisconsin, with how they can score the ball. Give me a thought or two on Wisconsin and obviously the different style of play they're implementing now. They have the ability to score 85 to 90 points most every night if they can.
Yeah, I think that, obviously you can never count out a Wisconsin Badgers team because they're going to keep it very basic, fundamentally sound. They're going to play physical. They're going to crash the boards. They have the experienced players. They've got Blackwell, a couple other guys. Forget the one guy's name who's the starting point guard for them, but
Nick Boyd,
who was also on that Florida Atlantic team that went to the Final Four. Exactly.
Player. He's been tremendous for them.
Only team to beat Michigan. Only team to beat Michigan in the conference in Ann Arbor.
Correct. And I think that that definitely speaks some volume for them. The issue with Wisconsin is when they win impressively. But sometimes when they lose, you tend to forget all about the win that they had. There's some inconsistencies there sometimes. I feel like usually with Wisconsin, they're one of the more, even if they don't win all the time, there's still a consistent team. You know exactly what you're going to get from them. This year, I feel like they've probably been consistently inconsistent. It just depends on which Wisconsin team is going to show up. And I was going to say this last thing real quick, TJ, about Nebraska. Not only the fact that we're not just having conversations about Nebraska winning basketball games at home because they've got this crowd and all this other stuff. You just ran off some teams where they won on the road. That's not typical Nebraska energy. And on top of that, as impressive as that is, I think that all the things that you mentioned when you ran off that other list are wins. One by one or by 100. Closer to 100 for a few of those games than it is to by one. But just the consistency, it feels like they've been more consistent typically in the role
Right.
that we see Wisconsin in as of late. If you're talking about most improved program, I know Vanderbilt's going to be in there. There's going to probably be Virginia that I think is probably going to be in that conversation. Most improved program, we are talking about Nebraska basketball. Hell, we hardly ever talk about Nebraska football anymore for crying
True.
out loud. We're talking about Nebraska basketball. That might be the most improved program in the
But you
country.
know, come tournament time, they're going to be on everybody's list of team to get knocked off, being that they've never won a tournament game. So they're going to be on the list of don't invest too much of your portfolio into Nebraska because they've never won a game.
We'll see. That's true. They have never won an NCAA tournament game. They're the only Power Five program that has that distinction right now. Even Northwestern, Vanderbilt, any of that, they've all won an NCAA tournament game. But what a story for Fred Hoiberg and his club and some of those. And remember, they took Michigan down to the wire. They led the whole second half at Ann Arbor, and Michigan overtook them with about a minute and a half left in the game. That woke a lot of people up that this is not a fluke for them. Anything else? Late games that are going on. They've gone to the half with Nebraska. I'm sorry, with Arkansas. I got Nebraska on the brain. Arkansas leading in the late games here, going to half with Texas A&M. I'm going to double check on the halftime scores, 37-28. For Arkansas, Alabama is destroying Mississippi State 63-33 at the half in the late games. Also in the late games, it is revenge for Gonzaga against Portland. Portland upset them earlier in the year. That is, I believe, Gonzaga's only conference loss. That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
15-1. They're up 15 on Portland at the half at home
And
and
maybe
basically lock up the number one seed
yeah.
if they win this game. Later tonight, Santa Clara. DeShaun loves him some late night hoops.
Oh yeah.
Later tonight, Santa Clara at St. Mary's. Both of those teams are tied right behind Gonzaga at 14-2 to be the number 2 seed. The interesting thing, if you win that game, you lock up one of the 2 byes in the West Coast Conference tournament, and you get a bye
Right.
all the way to the semifinals. So huge game, Santa Clara at St. Mary's. Both of them need it for their at-large resume, DeShaun. Speak to that as well. We'll look forward to that one. It starts in about an hour as we do this live at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific time, DeShaun. Real quick.
And that's Santa Clara and who?
Santa Clara at St. Mary's. They're both
Oof.
14-2 in the conference. Both have lost to Gonzaga. Santa Clara actually beat Gonzaga
Mm-hmm.
as well, or no, Santa Clara lost both games. I'm sorry, to
Lost.
Gonzaga. St. Mary's finishes with Santa Clara tonight and Gonzaga at home this weekend, and the winner gets the 2 seed in the West Coast
Santa Clara.
Conference tournament.
Santa Clara is a sneaky, really good team, especially within that conference. If you live anywhere outside of the Pacific
Time
time
zone.
zone,
Yeah.
then you may not be hip to what Santa Clara is capable of. Now, obviously, they've got some letdowns as well, but I'm pretty sure that everyone knows St. Mary's, the name that they've made for themselves over the years, not as good as they typically are, yet still a formidable, opponent that you can't just walk in there and assume that they're going to lay down for you by any means. So, I mean, the top of the cream of the crop obviously is a Gonzaga team. I just think that they fall into the category, especially as we get closer to March, that people are just kind of they've washed their hands with Gonzaga. I mean, that's just kind of what the vibe and the energy has been for most people when it comes to Gonzaga and college basketball is no matter whether they're, there is no more Cinderella slippers and all that kind of stuff. When
Right.
they had ran Dan Dickow and some of those guys, Casey Calvary and those guys
Oh,
out there
listen to him
anymore.
going old school with some of those
It's
names.
not,
Adam
yeah,
Morrison. Adam
Adam
Morrison.
Morrison's, yeah, some of those guys, those days are over. They come with expectations now, and they've got
Yep.
good team. Graham, Ek,
Yeah.
some of those guys. I mean, they're very good basketball players. And
And
Tyon Grant Foster is another one that we
correct.
had high expectations for a
And
transfer from Grand Canyon.
and an injury for them. Braden Huff, the outstanding scoring
Oof,
forward, has had a knee
yeah,
injury. He's been
mm,
out for a month, and they've
mm,
weathered the storm and won some games. If they get him back and get him in shape
Yep.
for March, what
mm.
an added weapon, added bonus for Mark Few in the tournament for Gonzaga. Stay tuned on that. So many more games that we could talk about, but you know what? We're probably good here at the moment. Follow this man at Tate's Take Hoops for the best
Yes.
on all the insight and the takes on social media. Love DeShaun Tate out of Atlanta. Anything else in closing on a Wednesday midweek edition of the recap? Anything else from you,
Are the
DeShaun?
people excited about Jonathan Kuminga as an Atlanta Hawk?
The people are excited already. I don't know if they're just kind of already counting chickens before they hatch already, but nonetheless, that's a really good way to start things off. And I know that this is just a totally different player. Maybe we were talking about St. Mary's. And maybe would say, did Jock Landale go to St. Mary's?
Yes, I believe he
Jock
did.
Landale came in for his, season debut with the Atlanta Hawks and looked like Trey Young out there and haven't looked like that way since. Hopefully that won't be the case with Jonathan Kuminga, but people are really excited and trying to forget really quickly about all the expectations that came along with the starting small forward, former number one pick Zachary Resache. So Kuminga will help do, some of that.
There you go.
DeShaun always breaking down the Hawks, the Locked On Hawks podcast. If you want more of that, we love you for the college hoops. Let's do this again. It'll be March soon enough. Anything else we left out, DeShaun, or are we good for midweek?
No, I don't think so. Really tough game for Sparty coming up tomorrow, TJ. Going to West Lafayette. I don't think they've won there in about 10 years. It's some really good basketball going on right now. I'm
Bear
really
in
excited to see.
mind, you know this, but for the audience, you want to be in the top 4 because you get a double bye, and Michigan and Purdue are kind of teetering right there around 4, 5, or 6.
Michigan State, yep.
Where Michigan State, excuse me, where Michigan, Illinois, Nebraska are all at the top, Wisconsin all at the top. You want to be in the top 4 to get the double bye at the Big Ten tournament in Chicago. So let's see what happens for Sparty tomorrow night. DeShaun, thank you. Always appreciate
it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you for having me.
Stuff from him tonight on college basketball coast to coast.
Again, you forgot
a
late game that it will have some significance. San Diego State hosting Utah State.
I had not forgotten that. We'll get to that in a moment. Let me tell the audience here about our friends at Kalshi while we're here. I always love getting a chance to plug this whenever we get the opportunity to, if I can get my technology to cooperate. Our friends at Kalshi, the predictive markets, we love them. There you go. It's simple to get on and to take a look at Kalshi right now, like the overwhelming favorite to win the college basketball player of the year in the predictive market is Cam Boozer. Would you agree with that? More so than Devonta of BYU or anybody else? Jason, would you agree with that in the predictive market on player of the year right now?
I'd give him a slight lean because of his performance against Michigan, where Duke is in the national rankings. I think he's probably a smidge ahead of Devonta with 2 weeks to go. But
all right, you have both of them up the top. You got Darian Peterson in the Player of the Year conversation.
Oh, he's not winning. He's
probably not. But Darius Acuff of Arkansas may get in the conversation. Duke is such a popular brand name, and Boozer, the son of the NBA star, is making his own name. Going to be tough to go against him. But the predictive markets from Kalshi is where you can go and predict on anything. This is an interesting one. The predictive market is about 50-50 on Nebraska to win Michigan to win the Big Ten, or maybe a team like Illinois to win the Big Ten. I know they took the loss to UCLA. It's not, according to the market vote, it's about a 50-50 vote. Who would you take Big Ten regular season champ, not the conference tournament champ,
Oh,
right now at Cal State?
Michigan's up 3 games in the loss column. They're not losing the
So
Big
they're not
Ten.
going to lose the regular season.
No.
What would you say, Florida and Arkansas? Arkansas winning tonight. They have
Florida.
the head-to-head matchup on Saturday. Right now, Florida is like 80% in the predictive market to win the SEC regular season. Would you go against that right now, or would you stick with Florida?
I would not. I would trust Florida over Arkansas, especially with the game being in Gainesville. Yes, I would absolutely trust the Gators in Gainesville on Saturday. And then obviously you got to finish out the last week, which they do have to go to Kentucky. Florida does at the end. But Florida's going to figure out a way to be the 1 seed in the SEC.
You know what we love in the predictive markets is it's not just college basketball, the matchups every night, player of the year. Right now, the Final Four, there's a couple of Final Four propositions that are there that the predictive markets are going for, like an Arizona versus a UConn. Which one of them will be in the Final Four? The predictive market has that about 50-50. Love the predictive markets. It's legal in 50 states to participate and vote on Kalshi. You can even choose to wager a little bit if you want. We have a promo code TJ Hoops if you want to get in and get a little promo bonus with Kalshi and get involved. TJ Hoops is how you do that. I love some of the other stuff that's on the predictive markets right now, like will the United States government acknowledge aliens, extraterrestrials, before December 31st of this year? So the former president, Barack Obama, kind of hinted at this, and then Donald Trump made it worse by saying, oh, he shouldn't be talking about that, about aliens and extraterrestrials. There is a predictive market right now that's at about 50-50. Jason Powers, where do you come down? Is the government going to acknowledge that they have knowledge of alien life before the end of this calendar year? How would you weigh in on Kalshi?
Wow. We're really talking about this on a Wednesday night about the aliens.
I'm just saying. I don't think they're ever acknowledging
that. I'm with you. I don't think they would publicly acknowledge that. I think that would be.
We want to induce mass panic. We already got enough on the verge of mass panic. Do we want to introduce that the little green men could be coming to get us all?
But they did have a bunch of stuff last night on the State of the Union address. How many times Trump would reference certain words and terms and topics? So, like,
let me give you another example in the predictive market. They are debuting the 50th season of Survivor on CBS, the reality TV show. And I used to be in this TV show, into it much more many years ago. I kind of swore it off. It got very canned. It got very stale, the same thing over and over again. So my twins are now into it. They've watched all the old seasons. They're into it. This could be the final year of Survivor. They've done it for 25 years, 2 times a year, 50th season. Tonight they had a predictive market in play for Jeff Probst, the host. He's synonymous with the show. He's been on the show every episode. Would he use the word alliance, where the people on Survivor get together and vote everybody off, or would he use the word trust? The predictive market was, which word will he use on the debut of the 50th season of Survivor first? Would he use alliance or would he use trust? And the market was like 55% for the word alliance. I don't know which word he used first, but that's just kind of interesting on what you can predict on Kalshi. Right now they've got the Academy Awards. Who's going to win Best Actor? They've got right now in pop culture, who's going to have the #1 hit the first week in April? There's some new Bruno Mars song that's out. Is that going to be #1 on April, the first week in April? The predictive markets are going crazy on Kalshi right now. Use the promo code TJ Hoops. We've given them a good plug tonight, so take advantage of that. You mentioned San Diego State and Utah State. What about this Mountain West and how crazy it is? Besides Utah State, that's probably the only team with the legit at-large possibility in the Mountain West. Huge game for San Diego State at home for the resume if they can beat them tonight. But don't we keep saying this? It's wide open below Utah State right now in the Mountain West.
And in these bubble teams around the country, they want it to. They don't want wide open in the Mountain West. They want Utah State to roll through this conference in the conference tournament, because that may open up a spot for another bubble team. Because if a San Diego State, if a Grand Canyon, who who was beating UNLV pretty good tonight. New Mexico, you got 3 or 4 or 5 teams from 2 to 6 that could easily make a run to the conference final when we go to Las Vegas in a couple of weeks, because that conference is wide open. Even Utah State's a little vulnerable at times.
Yeah, they're now about 28 or 29 in the net. They have a couple of good wins out of the conference. They did lose, oh, by the way, to the University of South Florida Bulls
Them up.
knocked off Utah State in a one-off game. Credit Jared Calhoun for wanting to come all the way to Tampa and play a one-off game in Tampa and go all the way back home to Utah. Utah State destroyed Memphis, also in the American Conference, for what it's worth. But they took a loss to Nevada Reno back on Saturday night. Nevada has followed that up with a win over New Mexico. Is Nevada dangerous? Is Grand Canyon dangerous? Is this San Diego State team tonight dangerous? Utah State won the first meeting. I don't know. Somebody's got to emerge and play Utah State in the semifinal of the championship game in Las Vegas, and we will be there to call the game Saturday night, March 14th on the TuneIn College Basketball Coast to Coast channel. We'll be there live in Vegas. And will it only be Utah State out of this conference?
I think in the end they're going to get a second team somehow, some way. I don't know who it's going to be or how it's going to materialize, but again, the Mountain West is usually get enough national respect that I think they'll figure out a way to get a second team in some way through that tournament. Somebody making a run in that tournament or whatever. The team you mentioned that beat Utah State, South Florida, another impressive road win tonight at Rice. Tulsa, who's in second place in that conference, a nice win at Tulane by 34. USF's up 2 games in the loss column with about a week and a half to go. So it's looking like the Bulls are going to be the 1 seed in that conference. Probably a 1-bid league. You got Tulsa. You got a kind of a semi-dangerous UAB team lurking.
Interesting tournament in Birmingham. They've gone to a new format where the top 2 teams are automatically in the semifinal on Saturday before the championship game on Sunday. So if you're South Florida in Tampa here, if you're Tulsa, you want to ride that as far as you can ride it right now in the regular season, because you don't have to play an extra game on Friday at the conference tournament. That's a switch. That's different in their format. So stay tuned on it. The Bulls. How crazy is it? Again, full disclosure, I'll just put the hat on real quick. Mrs. Rives is a Bull. Again, the Twins took an official visit to USF. They're leaning towards, can I say it? They're leaning towards committing to going to USF in Tampa. My twins, 17-and-a-half-year-olds. Stay tuned. But the Bulls, I did the games for 10 years in the late 90s and into the 2000s. Never sniffed a regular season title under Seth Greenberg or Robert McCullum the years that I did the games. This would be 2 regular season titles in 3 years. Let us not forget, they won the American regular season title 2 years ago with the late coach Amir Abdur-Rahim, who unfortunately passed away from complications with a stroke and with blood clots.
Surgery.
Awful a couple of years ago. But they won the conference in the regular season 2 years ago, didn't make the NCAA tournament, didn't get the automatic bid. Now they're about to potentially be regular season champs under Brian Hodgson. Could be here in the next couple of games. They could lock it up a second time. The Bulls, they still have to play at Memphis again coming up. We saw them in person last Thursday night. USF's got shooters. They got a big man, Isaiah Nelson. They could be an interesting team to look at for upsets if they get in the NCAA tournament for an initial upset. Wouldn't you think, Jason?
I do, but I would caution them based on how the standings are today. They would have a potential semifinal matchup, de facto road game against UAB in Birmingham. So and didn't UAB already beat USF in Birmingham?
Double overtime win.
So be careful. Again, UAB's won a bunch of games on the road here lately. I think they've won 9 straight road games. Not as good at home, but they'll have a good crowd there in Birmingham for that semifinal. That'll be probably a Friday night. That's usually a Friday, Saturday final. So semifinal.
You're talking
Friday
about
night.
The American? You're
yes.
talking American. The American is Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon.
Okay, so
but
have a good UAB crowd.
This is the downtown Birmingham arena.
Yep.
And UAB will certainly build momentum if they get a win or two to be alive, like you're saying. So stay tuned in the American Conference and for that change. Okay, anything else that we haven't covered for tonight. They've gotten the second half underway, and Gonzaga is throttling Portland in the rematch, 51-27 as we do this live. Obviously, if you're listening to us on podcast or the TuneIn streaming channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast, you know these finals. Arkansas, 11-point lead in the second half, 46-35, 17 minutes to go.
Alabama up 35
Wow.
with 12 minutes to go.
What they are destroying Mississippi State at home for the Tide. Anything else? Bubble game with Ohio State. They need it against Iowa tonight. That is at Iowa. I'm double checking on what that score is. That's Iowa up 49-32 in the second half. They've just gotten underway, about 17 minutes left in the second half. Grand Canyon in the Mountain West. You mentioned they've just gotten underway, second half leading UNLV. Bryce Drew's team. Throw them in the hopper of the Mountain West.
You had 10 Horizon League teams play tonight, which we're going to be doing that conference. Oakland won, Robert Morris won, Wright State, who I believe is the number one seed.
They are still the number one seed, Wright State.
They went on the road and won. Northern Kentucky won, Milwaukee won. So you're probably going to have a wild Horizon League tournament as well here with Green Bay in the mix as well with Gottlieb. So
that tournament, again, in Indianapolis, as we keep talking about, so we will be there, Final Four eventually in Indianapolis in April as well. We'll be there Tuesday night, March 10th for the Horizon League Championship. We've seen in this conference, it's been very interesting. Robert Morris won it a year ago. They seem to have a different winner every year. 2 years ago, it was Oakland with Jack Golke, the great three-point shooter, and then they gunned down Kentucky.
Yes.
Later on in the NCAA tournament, they beat Kentucky as a 14 seed, and the year before that was Darren Horn and Northern
Kentucky. Yep.
So it always seems to be wide open in the Horizon League. Winner of the tournament is probably a 16 or a 15 seed. Stay tuned.
Yep.
But we will be there in Indianapolis on Tuesday night, March the 10th, live. Then we'll progress to Las Vegas for Saturday, March 14th, in the Mountain West Championship in Las Vegas, Saturday evening before selection Sunday. I think you and I have pretty well covered most all of it. Anything else?
I think we're good.
Or are we good midweek? Reminder again to subscribe and hit the like button on the YouTube channel. That will help us out. Make some comments as well. Follow along at CBB Coast to Coast, the number 2, CBB Coast, the number 2 Coast on Twitter. Find us on podcast, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify under College Basketball Coast to Coast. Find the TuneIn channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast. I think I got all the plugs. And
Saturday night, somewhere around 10 to 10:30, we'll be on with our Saturday recap show. So, again,
Florida, Arkansas Saturday night, among other exciting action Saturday, and that's the final Saturday night before the month of March. The final day of February is Saturday, the 28th. Duke and Virginia in the afternoon, Jason Powers. Will be a titanic ACC showdown. Virginia destroyed NC State last night. Did you see where Duke beat Notre Dame by nearly 50 points, and it was their worst loss since 1896?
I saw
1896, worst loss at home. They played the Chicago Firefighters in the 1896 season, who beat them by 50 points. And now Duke comes around some 30 years later-ish.
And I would say, if I'm Micah Shrewsbury, I'd be looking for a real estate agent, because
you would be updating the coaching connections and the coaching tree. I'm just looking at what else is there in the top 25 on Saturday. We mentioned Virginia Duke early. North Carolina will Virginia will play Duke, and that will be early. And then later on in the afternoon, Kentucky and Vanderbilt, Arizona and Kansas.
There you go.
Later in the afternoon, we mentioned Alabama at Tennessee in the afternoon also for all of this different action, and St. Mary's and Gonzaga Saturday night. Listen, great stuff tonight. We've stayed here for a bit. We thank the audience for watching. Hit the like and the subscribe button on the different social media outlets. Find us on podcast and the TuneIn channel. Jason Powers, thank you. Have a great rest of the week. We'll jump aboard again on Saturday, my friend.
You got it.
Thanks to DeShaun Tate, also from Tate's Take Hoops, with us tonight out of the ATL. I'm merely TJ Rives. Thank you for being with us on College Basketball Coast to Coast.